Welcome back. Today we're going to talk about word problems that involve percents. So let's review some percents before we begin here. So a percent means, it literally means so per and cent means per 100. Okay, so this little symbol means it's parts out of 100. So this symbol takes the place of these words. Okay, it's a quick notation for parts out of 100, and it's just a way that people have determined that percents are a nice way to evaluate how many parts out of something. So we turn them into percent so that we can compare it out of 100 instead of, for instance, comparing everything out of an arbitrary number like 75. All right, so a percent gives us a way to determine how many parts out of 100 something would be. So if someone says the prices increased by 20%, well, we think, oh wow, that's 20 parts out of 100 total parts. Okay. But the other way of looking at it is percents means 3 parts out of 100 or 3/100ths. So to go from a percent into a fraction, we'd say 3 out of 100, and to go into a decimal, we would take 3 and divide it by 100. Now I want you to remember that dividing by 100, the way that you divide by powers of 10 is that you take the original number and you bring the decimal place over by the number of powers of 10. So this is 10 to the second power, so we're going to bring over the decimal place twice. Okay, dividing by 100 means bringing it to the left by 2. So essentially, to go from a percent right to a decimal, we take the numerical part of the percent and we divide it by 100. And a quick way of dividing by 100 is moving the decimal place over to the left twice. Okay, in order to answer some simple percent questions, we can use the proportion below. Is over of is equal to percent over 100. Okay, so oftentimes the simple percent problems are worded, there are 3 different types here, so they're worded in ways that it makes it easy to use this proportion. Another way of looking at it is part over whole is equal to percent over 100. This can be a little misleading because every once in a while your part can be larger than your whole. So it's misleading to think of a part as only a part of a whole, where sometimes a part can be, like if I said, what percent of 100 is 130? Well, then your part is going to be greater than your whole. So be careful of using this proportion because sometimes that can happen. All right, so what is 2% of 36? So this is how you break it down. What is means that we're looking for the is portion. 2% means that we have this up here, and of 100, of 36 rather, is your of portion. So is over of means that you have x over 36 is equal to 2%. And actually, once we put it into this format, we don't have to write the percent symbol because we're actually creating a fraction here. Right, 2% is 2 over 100, so I don't put the percent symbol anymore. Now I just solved this simple proportion by using cross products. So I multiplied x by 100 to get 100x. 2 times 36 is 72. Divide each side by 100. And now I would have x is equal to, now 72 divided by 100 is 0.72. Okay. So 2% of 36 is just the number 0.72. So notice that it's less than 1. Okay. So if we had 2 parts out of 100, that's equivalent to 0.72 out of 36. Okay, 20 is, so there's your first part. There's the top of the left ratio. 10% of what? That means your what is going to be your x number. Okay, so 20 over x is equal to 10 over 100. Notice in the proportion, the only number that remains all the time is the 100. Okay, so if I solve this, I would have 2,000 is equal to 10x. Divide each side by 10. I would have x is equal to 200. So it makes sense that 20 is 10% of 200, right? Okay, finally, 2 is what percent? So 2 is, there's your is. What percent? So I'm looking for percent. And then here's my of number. So 2 over 400 is equal to a percent over 100. So 2 times 100 is 200 is equal to, actually, sorry, the percent should be an x here. 400 times x is 400x. If I divide each side by 400, I'd have x is equal to 0.5. Now, since it's a percent, my answer is 0.5%. Okay, so it's half of a percent. So it's half of 1 part out of 100, right? That's what that means. So 2 is what percent of 400? That makes sense because 10% of 100 is 40. So 2 is much smaller than 40. So it makes sense that it's not even a whole percent out of 4. That 2 is not even a whole percent of 400. So 2 is 1/2 of 1% of 400. Okay, let's deal with more complicated problems. So let's say a dealer sold a radio for $29.20, which was 40% above cost to him. So oftentimes this is what happens. You have a salesperson like this cat here who is selling something, but the salesperson bought it for a cheaper price. And when they sell it, they're selling it to make money, of course, because that's their business. So they're selling it to be a certain percentage above what they paid for it. So they sold the radio for this much money, but it was 40% above cost to him. What was the cost to the dealer? So if X is equal to the cost to dealer, then what you know is that the dealer paid a certain price for it, and then he marked it up to be 40%. He added on to the original cost, he added 40% of that cost onto it. Remember, 0.4 is equal to 40%, right? So he added 40% of the cost on, and he arrived at the price, or he or she arrived at the price of $29.20. Whoops. Okay, so let's just go through these parts one more time. This right here is the original cost. This right here is the markup. And this right here is the cost to the buyer. Oops. Or the sales cost, okay? This is the cost at which he's selling it for. Okay, so what I can do here in order to solve this problem, remember the coefficient of this first x is 1. So since these are like terms, we both have x raised to the first power, I can just add the coefficients here. Okay, so 1 plus 0.4 is 1.4x, and that's equal to $29.20. Okay, and now I can just divide each side by 1.4, which I did before I started this video, and I got it to be $20.86. So it makes sense the dealer spent $20.86 to buy the radio and then marked it up to 40% of itself, and he sold it at $29.20. So there's a profit here of around $9, a little bit less than $9. Okay. Okay, that was a percent increase problem because I added a portion of the percent back onto the original number to get the cost that was given to me in the word problem. Let's say that we go through a percent decrease problem. So Jim wants to buy pants that were originally priced at $49.95 and they're marked down by 20%. What is the new price of the pants? So if X equals the original price of the pants, okay. Oh, actually I don't need to do that because I know the original price. So he paid, the original price was $49.95, so you can take $49.95 and subtract from it 20% of itself, 0.2 or 0.20 times $49.95, and that's going to be equal to whatever the sales price is. So right here, this is the markdown. Okay, this is the original price right here. Okay. Now, another quick way of doing this, so you can actually do this problem out, but what you can also think about this as is if 20% is knocked down from the original price, let's consider the original price to be 100%. Okay, and if it's knocked down by 20%, then what you have left is just 80% of the original price. So another way of thinking about this is 20% off is equivalent to 80% on. Whoops, 80% on. Okay, so you could just do 80% or 0.8 times $49.95 and still get the sales price here. It's a quick way of doing that. And again, I did this off camera, so we have 39.95 $39.96. And it would make sense here because it's about 10%, $10 off, which is about 80% of a number around 50. Okay. Here's another percent decrease problem. So if the original weight of a mineral is 50 milligrams and over time the weight decreases by 30%, what is the new weight of the rock in milligrams? Well, you can do the shortcut. 30% off means that what remains on is 70%. Okay, so you can just take 50 milligrams and multiply it by 70% to get 35 milligrams. And it's a quick way of doing that problem. Otherwise, you can also do 50 milligrams minus 30% of itself. Okay, and another way of seeing how we would arrive at this formula is to say, well, let's pretend that the coefficient to 50 is 1. So essentially, you're sort of like adding like terms. 1 minus 0.3 would allow you to arrive at 0.7 of this 50%. In other words, 100% minus 30% gets you 70% of the original, which is 35 milligrams. Okay, and that's the end of the lesson for today.